I was one of those like, with expansion, I like the 4 teams. What is he going to do the regular season? Well, we can check it off the list. It's made the regular season better than we ever thought possible in college football. Now, can you sit here and tell me, though, that there are 12 teams that belong playing for a national championship? Because there's one undefeated team that's working. The rest of them have losses and blemishes. So you can either say, well, this is the perfect year for the 12-team college football playoff, or I told you so. There aren't 12 teams that should be playing for a national championship.
No, there really aren't. But to me, the biggest surprise is we worried about conference championship games. Would they matter anymore? And we're sitting around in shock at some of these games that are coming up and the possibility. So yeah, they do matter. The SEC game doesn't, hold significance like it has in the past, like last year. But look
Mm-hmm.
at the ACC, the Big 12. Clemson has the worst loss of the season, and they're 1 week away from being in the playoffs. It's
Yeah,
truly unbelievable.
it really is. We'll unpack a lot of this stuff because there are things that you look at and you're like, how did this happen? Here's the one I want to start with though, because we talk about this a lot. We have relationships with coaches. We talk to a lot of people around the coaching circle, and the one that, to me, of all the things I've seen this year, to me the most stunning and inexcusable outcome of the season happened in the noon window in Columbus against Ohio State and Michigan, where the Buckeyes were 3 touchdown favorites against a Michigan team that lost everyone in the NFL. They have no quarterback to speak of. They have a rookie head coach that didn't have any experience. I mean, for Ryan Day to lose that one, to me, was the most stunning outcome of any game I've seen so far this season.
Yeah, because it was probably the game we talked about going into the season, and were almost joking, Matt, saying, there's a path for Ryan Day to get fired, to lose to Michigan, and then not win the national championship. And here we are, and you almost are. It reminds me a little bit of a couple of years ago when you wanted to write Ohio State off, but you can't. And I mean, I don't really know how to characterize that. I mean, it's one thing to take a game lightly. Remember a couple of years ago, Georgia had a path. Georgia was already in the playoffs. They lost to Alabama. They in the SEC game, and they came back and beat them 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later in the national championship. This is different.
Yeah.
Uh, this is the biggest game of the year in college football, and they still can't figure out how to win it. And this is a whole other special show we'll do on planting the flag, but Ryan Day comes up with just this idiotic statement about, well, we're not gonna let them do that to our field. Try to beat them first, okay, Ryan? You won't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that was the back and forth after that game. And I sit next to Joey Galloway, and he's been a good friend of mine for years. And he's sitting there, he's almost laughing at the absurdity of everything going on because you bring in Will Howard because you think he's going to be your answer at quarterback. Well, the guy you chased out, Kyle McCord, pulls off the upset against Miami, throws for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you watched that game yesterday, and it's like, how did Ohio State get to the point where they have the most talented roster in college football, and we're arguing about letting teams plant the flag at midfield when you had 4 quarters to ram the flag right up there you wanted it to?
No, I mean, and again, it happened all day long and all night because these guys watch other games. But that's the one that gets me. If you're Ryan Day, keep your mouth shut. Uh, I, I, I mean, his path is so interesting. Let's remind the audience, he's got a brand new athletic director. This is the same guy who fired Jimbo Fisher 2
Yeah.
years ago in Ross Bjork. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can evaluate Ryan Day until it's all over this year, whenever they walk off the field for the final time. But they better not lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, here's an interesting dynamic, Paul, and we really haven't gotten into this too much, but I think Ryan Day is probably going to be the ultimate test case. How many jobs will a college football playoff ultimately save in its 12-team inception and moving forward? Because you can't sit here and be like, Ryan Day, you're out, Chip Kelly, you're
You
in.
can't.
One, because Chip Kelly wants nothing to do with being a head coach. Two, Ohio State's going to make the playoff. You know what that means? They have a chance to play for the national championship, and at any given point, they're the most talented team in the country.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, they lost to Michigan and came right back in the semifinals and had a 2 touchdown lead over Georgia in the fourth
Yep.
quarter. they would have won. I think that was the TCU year. That was 2 years. They would have won the national championship. So you can't, the old columnist in me wants to just write the column, fire the coach. You can't do it.
You're right.
You cannot do anything, but you have to watch it, and then you have to decide where you're going to go. And if he wins, I mean, it would. By the way, it's. I can believe they'll win I mean, they may win the national championship. Just because they took off the biggest day of the year in college football doesn't mean they can't come back.